The lights in the lower levels of New Seoul Space Station flickered like dying stars. Tae-ho Kim pushed his cleaning cart down the narrow hallway, the wheels squeaking with each turn. His shift started at midnight when most people were asleep. He liked it that way. No crowds, no noise, just him and the endless corridors that needed cleaning. Tae-ho had worked as a janitor on the station for 3 years. He knew every corner, every pipe, every strange sound the old building made. The station was huge, home to over 50,000 people from dozens of different worlds. But down here on maintenance level 7, it was always quiet. He stopped at junction 4 to B and opened his supply closet. The mop bucket was almost empty. He would need to fill it at the next water station. As he lifted the bucket, he heard something strange. A soft whimpering sound came from the air vent above his head. Tae-ho stood still and listened. There it was again. Something was definitely in there. It sounded hurt. He climbed onto his cart and pushed up the vent cover. The metal grate was loose. Hanging at an odd angle, someone or something had forced it open from the inside. Tae-ho pulled out his flashlight and peered into the dark space. The air vent was bigger than most, wide enough for a person to crawl through. His light beam moved slowly across the metal walls. Then he saw it. A small creature was pressed against the far corner of the vent. It was unlike anything Tae-ho had ever seen. The creature looked like a tiny dragon from old Earth stories. It had 4 legs, a long tail, and wings that should have been beautiful. But one wing was bent at a terrible angle, clearly broken. The creature's scales shimmered in the flashlight beam, changing from deep blue to silver to gold. Its eyes were large and intelligent, filled with pain and fear. When the light hit them, they reflected like mirrors. The dragon was small, about the size of a house cat. Blood had dried on its damaged wing and side. It tried to move away from the light, but could only drag itself a few inches. Every movement caused it to make that soft whimpering sound. Tae-ho felt his heart break. Whatever this creature was, it was suffering. He had always been the kind of person who helped hurt animals. As a child on Earth, he had rescued stray cats and injured birds. His mother used to say he had too soft a heart for his own good. He knew the rules. Station regulations were very clear about alien creatures. All non-registered fauna had to be reported to security immediately. No exceptions. The penalties for hiding unauthorized aliens were severe. People had been sent to prison for less. Like looking at this small, hurt creature, Tae-ho could not bring himself to call security. They would probably destroy it or send it to some research lab. Either way, it would likely die. The dragon watched him with those intelligent eyes. It seemed to understand that he was trying to help. Slowly, carefully, Tae-ho reached into the vent. The creature did not try to bite him or scratch him. It just watched as his hand came closer. When Tae-ho gently touched its uninjured side, it made a different sound. Not pain this time, but something like relief. Getting the dragon out of the vent was tricky. Tae-ho had to be very careful not to hurt its broken wing more. He used his cleaning cloth to wrap around the creature, making a soft nest. The dragon seemed to understand what he was doing and did not struggle. Once he had it safely in his hands, Tae-ho could see how badly it was hurt. The wing was definitely broken in at least 2 places. There were scratches on its side and one of its back legs was swollen. It must have been in terrible pain, but it just looked at him with trust in its strange, beautiful eyes. Tae-ho looked around the empty hallway. What was he going to do now? He could not leave the creature here. It would die. He could not take it to the medical center. They would ask too many questions, and he definitely could not call security. That left only one choice. He would have to take it to his quarters and try to help it himself. It was against every rule in the book. But it was the right thing to do. Tae-ho carefully placed the wrapped dragon in the bottom of his supply cart, under some clean towels. The creature made no sound as he covered it. It seemed to understand that it needed to stay hidden. The trip back to his quarters felt like the longest walk of his life. Every security camera seemed to stare at him. Every person he passed seemed suspicious, but no one stopped him. No one asked questions. Just another janitor, finishing his shift. Tae-ho lived in a small room in the worker housing section. It was not much, just a bed, a desk, a tiny kitchen, and a bathroom. But it was private, and it was his. He locked the door behind him and carefully lifted the dragon from his cart. In the better light of his room, he could see that the creature was even more beautiful than he had first thought. Its scales were like tiny jewels, each one catching and reflecting light in different ways. Despite its injuries, there was something regal about it, something that spoke of ancient wisdom and power. Tae-ho set the dragon gently on his bed and went to get his first aid kit. He was not a doctor, but he had basic medical training. All station workers did it. He hoped it would be enough. That as he cleaned the dragon's wounds, he talked to it softly. He told it that he was going to help it get better. He promised that he would not let anyone hurt it. The creature listened to every word, its eyes never leaving his face. When he was done treating the wounds, Tae-ho made a splint for the broken wing, using bandages and 2 plastic rulers from his desk. The dragon held perfectly still while he worked, as if it understood that this was necessary. Finally, Tejo made a soft bed in a cardboard box and placed the dragon inside. He put the box on his desk where he could keep an eye on it. The creature curled up in the soft blankets and closed its eyes for the first time since he had found it, as Tejo watched the small dragon sleep. He wondered what he had gotten himself into. He had no idea what kind of creature this was or where it had come from. He did not know if anyone was looking for it. All he knew was that it needed help, and he was going to give it. Outside his small window, the stars shone cold and distant, but inside his room, something magical had begun. Tejo woke up after only 3 hours of sleep. His first thought was about the small dragon in the box on his desk. He sat up quickly and looked over at the makeshift bed he had made. The dragon was awake, watching him with those bright, intelligent eyes. It had not tried to escape during the night. Instead, it had stayed curled up in the soft blankets, waiting for him to wake up. "Good morning, little one," Tejo said softly. The dragon tilted its head at the sound of his voice. Almost like it was trying to understand his words, Tejo got dressed quickly and went to check on his patient. The dragon's breathing seemed better than the night before. The swelling in its back leg had gone down a little. That was a good sign. But the creature had not eaten anything since he found it. Tejo had no idea what dragons ate. Did they eat meat like the old Earth stories said? Or maybe they ate plants. He decided to try different things and see what the dragon liked. First, he tried some leftover chicken from his dinner the night before. He cut it into tiny pieces and placed them near the dragon. The creature sniffed the meat but did not eat it. Next, he tried some fruit. He had an apple in his small kitchen. He cut it into small bits and offered them to the dragon. Again, the creature sniffled at the food but showed no interest in eating. Tejo was starting to worry. The dragon needed to eat something to get better. He tried bread, cheese, even some cookies he had saved from the cafeteria. Nothing worked. Then he remembered the energy bars he kept for long work shifts. They were packed with vitamins and minerals, designed to give humans everything they needed. Maybe they would work for the dragon too. He broke off a small piece of energy bar and held it out. The dragon's eyes brightened immediately. It carefully took the piece from his fingers with its small mouth and ate it quickly. Then it looked at him as if asking for more. Tejo smiled for the first time since finding the creature. "So you like energy bars?" he said. "That makes things easier." He gave the dragon several more small pieces. It ate each one eagerly, but carefully, never biting his fingers or being greedy. Even while eating, the creature watched his face, as if it was studying him. After the dragon finished eating, Tejo needed to go to work. He could not miss his shift without raising questions, but he worried about leaving the injured creature alone. "I have to go to work now," he told the dragon, "but I will be back soon. Please stay here and rest. You need to get better." The dragon seemed to understand. It settled back into its blanket nest and closed its eyes. But Tejo noticed that it kept one eye slightly open, watching him as he gathered his things. At work, Tejo found it hard to concentrate. He kept thinking about the dragon alone in his room. Was it in pain? Was it trying to escape? Was someone looking for it? During his lunch break, he hurried back to his quarters. The dragon was exactly where he had left it, still resting in its box. But when it saw him come in, it made a soft sound that almost seemed like happiness. "I brought you something," Tejo said. He had taken extra energy bars from the cafeteria. The dragon ate them gratefully, and this time it made a soft purring sound while eating. After feeding the dragon, Tejo carefully examined its injuries. The broken wing was still badly hurt, but the cuts on its side were healing well. The plastic splint was holding the wing in the right position. "You are getting better," he told the creature, "but it will take time. Broken bones need weeks to heal properly." The dragon looked at him while he spoke, its head tilted to one side. Tejo had the strange feeling that it understood every word he said. Over the next few days, a routine developed. Between them, Tejo would wake up and feed the dragon energy bars. Then he would go to work while the dragon rested. At lunch, he would return to check on his patient and give it more food. After his shift ended, he would spend the evening sitting by the dragon's box, talking to it while it listened. The dragon began to show more personality as it felt better. It would make different sounds for different things. A soft chirp when it was hungry, a gentle purr when it was content, a worried whine when Tejo seemed sad or tired. By the fourth day, the dragon was trying to move around more. Tejo made a larger space for it on his bed, surrounded by pillows so it could not fall off. The creature explored this new area carefully, always mindful of its injured wing. It was during one of these explorations that something amazing happened. Tejo was eating his dinner while watching the dragon move around the bed. Suddenly, the creature stopped and looked directly at him. Then it made a sound Tejo had never heard before. It sounded almost like the dragon was trying to say his name. Te. It repeated, its voice high and musical. Tejo nearly dropped his food. "Did you just try to say my name?" he asked in amazement. The dragon tilted its head and repeated the sound. Te. From that moment, everything changed between them. The dragon was not just an injured animal, he was helping. It was an intelligent being trying to communicate with him. Tae-Ho decided the dragon needed a name too. He thought about it while the creature watched him with curious eyes. "I will call you Bugil," he said finally. "It means star in Korean, because your scales shine like stars." When he said the name, the dragon made its happy purring sound. It seemed to like its new name. Over the following days, their communication grew stronger. Bugil learned to make different sounds that Tae-Ho began to understand. A certain chirp meant hungry. A gentle trill meant happy. A worried whine meant scared or uncertain. Tae-Ho talked to Bugil about everything. He told the dragon about his work, about his life on Earth before coming to the station, about his dreams for the future. Bugil listened to every word, sometimes making soft sounds as if commenting on what he heard. The dragon's wing was healing well. Tae-Ho changed the splint regularly and was amazed at how quickly Bugil recovered. Dragons must heal faster than humans, he thought, but as Bugil got better, Tae-Ho began to worry more. Someone must be looking for such a beautiful and obviously intelligent creature. What would happen when they found him? What would happen to Bugil? For now, though, they were safe together. In his small room, Bugil was learning to trust him completely, and Tae-Ho found himself caring for the small dragon more than he had ever cared for anything in his life. He had no idea that their peaceful time together was about to end. The morning started like any other. Tae-Ho fed Bugil his usual energy bars and got ready for work. The little dragon was much better now. His wing was still in a splint, but he could move around easily and his eyes were bright and alert. "I will be back at lunchtime," Tae-Ho told Bugil, giving him a gentle pat on the head. The dragon purred softly and settled into his blanket nest to rest. But when Tae-Ho reached his work area on level 7, something was different. Security officers were everywhere. They wore the dark blue uniforms of station security and carried scanning devices that Tae-Ho had never seen before. Officer HFY Park was talking to the maintenance supervisor near the supply closets. Tae-Ho had seen Officer Park many times during his 3 years on the station. She was always polite but serious, the kind of person who followed rules exactly. "What is happening?" Tae-Ho asked his coworker Minho, who was standing nearby with his cleaning cart. "Some important alien arrived this morning," Minho whispered. "He says something valuable was stolen from his ship. Security is searching everywhere." Tae-Ho felt his stomach drop. He tried to keep his face calm, but inside he was panicking. Could they be looking for Bugil? Officer Park walked over to them. "We need to search all the maintenance areas," she said. "An alien dignitary has reported that his companion animal is missing. It might have gotten into the air vents or utility spaces." "What kind of animal?" Tae-Ho asked, trying to sound casual. "A small dragon-like creature," Officer Park replied. "Very valuable. The owner is offering a large reward for its return." Tae-Ho's hands began to shake. He gripped his mop handle tighter to hide it. "I haven't seen anything like that," he said. "We still need to search," Officer Park said. "Please, show us any areas where a small animal might hide." For the next 2 hours, Tae-Ho had to help the security team search all his usual work areas. They found nothing, of course, but every minute felt like an hour. All he could think about was Bugil. Alone in his quarters. During lunch break, Tae-Ho rushed back to his room. Bahula was safe, but the dragon seemed to sense something was wrong. He made worried chirping sounds when he saw Tae-Ho's frightened face. "There are people looking for you," Tae-Ho said quietly. "I think your owner has come to find you." Bugil. Scales changed color, shifting from their usual gold and blue to darker shades. The dragon pressed himself against Tae-Ho's hand and made a sound that was clearly distressed. "Don't worry," Tae-Ho said, though he was very worried himself. "I won't let anyone hurt you." That afternoon, the searches continued, but now they were more organized. Security officers were checking every room, every storage area, every possible hiding place. Tae-Ho knew it was only a matter of time before they came to the worker housing section. During his dinner break, Tae-Ho went to the main observation deck to think. Through the huge windows, he could see several ships docked at the station. One of them was unlike any he had ever seen before. The ship was massive and beautiful, made of some kind of dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Strange symbols were carved into its hull, and it radiated an aura of power and wealth. This had to be the ship that belonged to Bugil's owner. As Tae-Ho watched, a group of beings emerged from the ship's airlock. They were clearly not human. They were tall and thin, with pale skin and long limbs, but the one in the center was different from the others. This alien was bigger and more imposing than his companions. He wore elaborate robes that sparkled with embedded jewels. His movements were sharp and angry, and even from far away, could see that he was furious about something. "That must be him," Tae-Ho whispered to himself. "That must be Bugil's owner." The alien was talking to Officer Park and several other security officials. Even though Tae-Ho could not hear the words, he could see that the alien was demanding and impatient. He gestured angrily at the station around them. Officer Park nodded respectfully and spoke into her communication device. Within minutes, more security officers appeared. The search was being expanded. Tae-Ho hurried back to his quarters. He had to think of something quickly. The alien owner looked like the kind of person who would not give up easily, and if the searches continued, they would eventually find Buell. When he entered his room, Buell immediately came to him. The dragon had somehow gotten out of his box and was waiting by the door. His wing was still in its splint, but he could move well enough to get around. "You knew I was coming," Teho said, amazed. "How did you know?" Buell made soft chirping sounds and pressed against Teho's leg. Then the dragon did something he had never done before. He walked to the small window in Teho's room and looked out toward the docking area where the alien ship was berthed. The dragon's scales turned dark, almost black. He made a low sound that was clearly fear and distress. There was no doubt about it now. Buell recognized his owner's ship, and he was terrified. "You were running away from him, weren't you?" Teho asked gently. "That's how you got hurt." "You were trying to escape." Buell looked up at him with large, sad eyes and nodded slightly. Dragons could nod. That was another surprise in a day full of surprises. Tahoe sat down on his bed, and Buell immediately jumped up beside him. The dragon curled up against his side, seeking comfort and protection. "I won't let him take you if you don't want to go," Teho said firmly. "I don't care how important he is or how much trouble I get in. You chose to trust me, and I won't betray that trust." But even as he made this promise, Teho knew how difficult it would be to keep. The alien owner had the law on his side. Buell was his property according to galactic regulations. A human janitor had no legal right to keep someone else's companion animal, no matter how good his reasons were. Outside his small window, Teho could see more security vehicles moving around the station. The search was getting more intense. Soon they would start checking the worker housing areas. Teho spent the rest of the evening trying to think of a plan. Could he hide Buell somewhere else? Could he somehow get the dragon off the station? Every idea seemed impossible or too dangerous. As night fell, Buell curled up in his usual spot next to Teho's pillow. But tonight the dragon did not sleep peacefully. He kept making small worried sounds, and his scales kept changing to darker colors. Teho stayed awake most of the night, watching over his small friend and wondering what tomorrow would bring. He had a terrible feeling that their time together was running out. The hunt for Buell was getting closer, and soon there would be nowhere left to hide. The next morning brought bad news. Officer Park announced that all worker quarters would be searched that afternoon. Every room, every storage space, every possible hiding place would be examined. Teho sat on his bed with Buell curled up beside him. The dragon's wing was healing well, but he still could not fly. And even if he could, where would they go on a space station? "We need to find somewhere else for you to hide," Teho said softly. Buell looked up at him with worried eyes and made a soft chirping sound. Teho thought about all the places he knew on the station. Most were too dangerous or too public. Then he remembered the old maintenance tunnels that ran behind the main corridors. They had been abandoned years ago when the station was upgraded, but they were still accessible if you knew where to look. "I have an idea," he told Buell, "but you will have to trust me completely." Teho put Buell in a large supply bag, making sure the dragon had plenty of air holes. Then he loaded his cleaning cart with supplies and headed for level 6, one floor above his usual work area. The old maintenance entrance was hidden behind a false wall panel. Teho had discovered it during his first year on the station. He carefully opened the panel and looked inside. The tunnel was dark and dusty, but it was big enough for them to hide in. He carried Buell inside and set up a small camp with blankets and food. The dragon explored the new space carefully, sniffing everything with curiosity. "You will be safe here," Teho said. "I will come back to check on you as soon as I can." But as he turned to leave, Buell made a sound of distress. The dragon did not want to be left alone in the dark tunnel. He grabbed onto Teho's sleeve with his small claws and looked up at him with pleading eyes. "I have to go to work," Teho explained. "If I don't show up, people will ask questions, but I promise I will come back." Reluctantly, Buell let go of his sleeve. But the dragon's scales had turned to sad, dark colors that made Teho's heart ache at work. Teho tried to act normal while his mind raced with worry. The security searches were getting more thorough. They had brought in special equipment that could detect heat signatures and even unusual smells. During lunch break, Teho rushed to the hidden tunnel. But when he opened the entrance, Buell was not where he had left him. The dragon had explored deeper into the tunnel system. Buell Teho called softly, "Where are you?" He heard a faint chirping sound from somewhere ahead in the darkness. Teho crawled through the narrow tunnel, following the sound. He found Buell in a wider section, standing in front of something that made Teho gasp in amazement. The wall was covered with strange symbols that glowed with a soft, blue light. They looked similar to the markings Teho had seen on the alien ship, but these were different somehow. Older and more complex. Buell was staring at the symbols with intense concentration. His scales were glowing too, matching the color of the markings on the wall. When he saw Teho, the dragon made excited chirping sounds and pointed at the symbols with his good wing. "What is this place?" Teho wondered aloud. "And how do you know what those symbols mean?" But Joel walked closer to the wall and touched one of the symbols with his small claw. The marking flashed brighter for a moment, and suddenly, Tahoe heard something impossible. Words in his own language, coming from inside his head. Ancient knowledge, here. The voice was soft and musical, definitely not human. My kind built this. Long ago. Tahoe stared at Buell in shock. You can talk. You can speak directly to my mind. Buell nodded and touched another symbol. The voice in Tahoe's head became clearer and stronger. Not talk, as you do, but share thoughts. When touching. The old marks, my people, once traveled. All through space. Before the cruel ones made us slaves. The cruel ones, Tahoe asked. You mean like your owner? Buell's scales turned dark with anger and fear. He is Kongman. He steals my people. Makes us perform. For his pleasure, treats us like stupid animals. We are not animals. We are stellar worms. We think. We feel. We remember. Now Tahoe understood everything. Buell was not just an intelligent pet. He was a member of an ancient, advanced species that had been enslaved by others. That was why he had tried to escape. That was why he was so afraid of being found. How long have your people been slaves? Tahoe asked. Many, many years. Longer than your people. Have traveled in space. Most of my kind have forgotten who we once were. But some still remember, still dream of freedom. Tahoe felt anger rising in his chest. How could anyone treat such intelligent, feeling beings as property? It was wrong in every possible way. I won't let him take you back, Tahoe said firmly. There has to be something we can do. But Joel looked at him with grateful eyes. You are different. From others, you have kind heart, like the old stories say some humans do. But Kongman is powerful, has many guards, much money, who will believe, lowly janitor, over great alien lord. It was a good question. Tahoe was nobody special on the station. He had no influence, no important friends, no money. Against someone like Kongman, he had no chance at all. But as he looked at Buell's hopeful face and remembered the fear in the dragon's eyes when he saw his owner's ship, Tahoe made a decision. Maybe I can't win, he said, but I can try. And if I'm going to try, I need to know everything. Can you tell me more about your people? About what Kongman does to you? Buell touched the glowing symbols again, and for the next hour, he shared his story with Tahoe. He told him about the stellar Wyram's ancient civilization, about how they had once been explorers and scholars who traveled between the stars in search of knowledge. He told him about the day the slavers came and how his people were scattered across the galaxy, sold to the highest bidders. He told him about Kongman's cruelty, about the other stellar Wyrams who had died trying to escape, about the performances they were forced to do for entertainment, and he told him about the hope that some of his people still carried, the belief that someday they would be free again. By the time Buell finished his story, Tahoe was more determined than ever to help him, but he also knew that they were running out of time. The searches were getting closer, and soon, even this hidden tunnel would not be safe. As if reading his thoughts, Buell suddenly went very still. His scales turned pale with fear. They come, he whispered into Tahoe's mind. The hunters, they have new machines that can sense my kind. We must run now. Tahoe heard footsteps and voices in the corridor outside the tunnel. The search had reached level 6. Their hiding place had been discovered. Tahoe heard the security officers getting closer. Their voices echoed through the old maintenance tunnels as they searched every corner. He grabbed Buell and crawled as quickly as he could toward another exit he remembered from his early days exploring the station. This way, he whispered. Buell pressed close against him, trying to make no sound at all. They reached a junction where 3 tunnels met. Tahoe could hear officers in 2 of the passages, but the third seemed quiet. He started toward it, but Buell suddenly grabbed his arm with a small claw. No, the dragon's voice whispered in his mind. Trap, ... They wait. There too, ... Tahoe looked around desperately. They were surrounded. There was nowhere left to run. The voices were getting louder now. Tahoe could see flashlight beams moving in the darkness. In just a few more minutes, they would be found. I'm sorry, Buell, Tahoe whispered. I tried to keep you safe. But Buell was not giving up. The small dragon moved to the wall covered with glowing symbols and pressed both his front claws against the ancient markings. The symbols flared brighter, and suddenly the tunnel filled with a soft, musical humming sound. The humming grew louder and more complex, almost like a song. Tahoe realized that Buell was calling out in his own language, using the old technology his people had built long ago. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, from somewhere far away in the station, another voice answered. It was faint but clear. Another stellar worm responding to Buell's call. My cousin, ... day-1, ... he lives, but is ... very weak. Has been ... slave too long. Almost forgotten ... how to speak ... There are others here, Tahoe asked in amazement. Few ... but yes ... Kong-min ... travels with ... 3 of us ... 4 is ... entertainment ... the others ... do not remember who they are ... think they are ... just pets. The security officers were very close now. Taeho could hear their equipment beeping as it detected unusual energy readings from the ancient symbols. Over here, someone called. The scanner is showing something in this section. Taeho made a quick decision. If they were going to be caught anyway, he would not make Buell face it alone. He picked up the small dragon and crawled back toward his quarters. Maybe if he could get there first, he could at least pretend that Buell had been in his room all along, but it was too late. When Taeho emerged from the maintenance tunnel, 6 security officers were waiting for him. Their equipment had tracked Buell's energy signature directly to this spot. Officer Park stepped forward, looking sad but determined. Taeho Kim, you are under arrest for theft of alien property and violation of station regulations. Behind the security officers stood the most frightening being Taeho had ever seen. Kangmin was even more imposing up close than he had been from a distance. He was nearly 8 feet tall, with pale skin that seemed to shine with its own light. His eyes were completely black, like looking into empty space. His elaborate robes moved around him as if they were alive. So, Kangmin said, in a voice like cold metal, "This is the thief who dared to steal from me." His accent was strange, making some words sound longer than others, but his meaning was very clear. He was furious. Buell pressed closer to Taeho and began to shake. His scales turned the darkest color Taeho had ever seen them become. "I didn't steal anything," Taeho said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I found him injured and helped him get better. That's all." Kangmin laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "Helped him? You mean you kidnapped my valuable companion and hid him from me? Do you have any idea how much this creature is worth?" "He's not a creature," Taeho said, his anger starting to overcome his fear. "He's intelligent. He can think and feel just like you or me." "Nonsense," Kangmin snapped. "It is a trained animal, nothing more. A very expensive trained animal that belongs to me." Kangmin reached toward Buell, but the small dragon pressed even closer to Taeho and made a sound of pure terror. It was not the musical chirping Taeho was used to hearing. This was the sound of a being in absolute despair. "See how it clings to you," Kangmin said with disgust. "These creatures bond with anyone who feeds them, but it will forget you soon. Enough, once it is back where it belongs." "No," Taeho said firmly. "Look at him. Really look at him. He's not acting like a pet that wants to go home. He's terrified of you. What did you do to him?" For the first time, Kangmin's expression changed. His black eyes narrowed dangerously. "What I do with my property is none of your concern. Human, you have caused me great inconvenience. I should have you thrown in prison for a very long time." Officer Park stepped between them. "That's enough. Taeho, please hand over the creature so we can settle this matter." Taeho looked down at Buell, who was trembling in his arms. The dragon's eyes were full of trust and hope, but also acceptance. But Joel knew what was going to happen, and he was trying to be brave about it. "Please," Taeho said to Officer Park, "just give me 5 minutes to explain. This isn't what it looks like." "There is nothing to explain," Kangmin said coldly. "Return my property immediately, or face the consequences." But something unexpected happened. As Kangmin reached for Buell again, the dragon did something he had never done before. He spoke out loud, in words everyone could hear. "No," Buell said in a small, clear voice. "Please, no, want to stay." With Tae-ho, the security officers stepped back in shock. Officer Park's eyes went wide. Even Kangmin looked surprised. For a moment, it spoke. One of the officers whispered. The creature actually spoke. Kangmin recovered quickly from his surprise. "Clever trick," he said dismissively. "Some of these animals can mimic words. It means nothing." But Bujal was not finished. Still shaking with fear, he looked directly at Officer Park and spoke again. "Am not animal," he said slowly, fighting. To make the words clear, am stellar worm. My people were free, before the slavers came. This one, he pointed a small claw at Kangmin, keeps us in cages. Makes us perform tricks. Hurts us when we try to remember who we are. The tunnel fell silent except for the sound of people breathing. Everyone stared at the small dragon who had just claimed to be a member of an enslaved sentient species. Kangmin's face twisted with rage. "Lies," he hissed. "Clever lies, programmed into it by someone who wants to steal my property. I have legal ownership documents. This creature belongs to me under galactic law." Officer Park looked confused and troubled. "If what the creature says is true, then we have a very different situation here. The enslavement of sentient beings is illegal under galactic law. The creature is not sentient," Kangmin insisted. "It is an animal. A valuable, well-trained animal, but still just an animal." Taeho saw his chance. "Then prove it," he said. "If Buell is just an animal, let him choose. Animals always go to whoever feeds them, right? Put some food on the ground and see if he goes to you or stays with me." It was a desperate plan, but it was the only one Taeho could think of. Kangmin smiled coldly, confident in his victory. "Very well," he said. "This foolishness has gone. On long enough, he pulled a small device from his robes and activated it. The device projected a hologram of the most delicious-looking food Taeho had ever seen. The smell was amazing, making his own mouth water. "Come, Kongmin," commanded Buell. "Come and eat." But Buell did not move toward the food. Instead, he pressed even closer to Taeho and wrapped his good wing around the human's arm. "Choose, Taeho," Buell said clearly. "Choose, freedom, choose, friend." The words hung in the air like a challenge to everything Kongmin had claimed. The silence stretched on as everyone stared at Buell, clinging to Taeho's arm. The small dragon's words echoed in the tunnel. "Choose friend, choose freedom, Officer Park looked deeply troubled. In all her years of security work, she had never encountered anything like this. The regulations were clear about stolen property, but they were also clear about the rights of sentient beings. "This is ridiculous," Kongmin snarled. "I will not stand here and debate with a trained animal. Return my property immediately, or I will file formal complaints with the Galactic Trade Commission." But before Officer Park could respond, footsteps echoed from the main corridor. A new voice called out, "Officer Park, what is the situation here?" Station Commander Sujin Lee appeared at the tunnel entrance, followed by a man in a white lab coat. Taeho recognized him as Dr. Jae Sung Choi, the station's chief xenobiologist. "Commander Lee," Officer Park said with relief, "we have a complicated situation. This maintenance worker was hiding what appears to be a stolen companion animal, but the creature claims to be a sentient being." Commander Lee was a small, quiet woman who had run New Seoul Station for over 10 years. She was known for being fair but firm, and for always following proper procedures. She looked at the scene carefully, taking in Taeho holding Bujol Kongmin's angry expression, and the shocked faces of the security officers. "Dr. Choi," she said calmly, "please examine this creature and give me your professional opinion about its intelligence level." Dr. Choi stepped forward with his scanning equipment. He was a kind man who had always been friendly to Taeho during their brief encounters in the station corridors. "May I?" Taeho politely. Taeho looked down at Bujol, who nodded slightly. "It's okay," Taeho told the doctor. "He won't hurt you." Dr. Choi began his examination, running various scans and tests. Bujol cooperated fully, even answering simple questions in his slow, careful speech. "What is your name?" Dr. Choi asked. "Buell," the dragon replied. "Tae-ho ... gave me. This name ... means star ... I like it ... How do you feel right now?" "Scared," Buell said honestly. "But safe ... with Tae-ho ... he is. Good person ... healed my wing. Gave me food ... talked to me ... like I was ... important." Dr. Choi continued his tests for several minutes while Kongmin grew more and more impatient. Finally, the doctor stepped back and looked at Commander Lee. "Commander, in my professional opinion, this being shows clear signs of advanced intelligence. His brain scans indicate cognitive abilities equal to or exceeding those of most known sentient species. He demonstrates self-awareness, emotional complexity, and the ability to form meaningful relationships." "Impossible," Kongmin snapped. "I have owned these creatures for years. They are animals, nothing more." "Have you ever tried to communicate with them?" Dr. Choi asked quietly. "Have you ever asked them questions or listened to their responses?" Kongmin's expression grew cold. "I do not converse with my property." "Then how would you know if they were intelligent or not?" Commander Lee asked. For the first time, Kongmin seemed unsure of himself. "The legal documents ... Legal documents can be wrong," Commander Lee said firmly, "especially if they were created without proper testing for sentience." "Dr. Choi, what do galactic laws say about this situation?" Dr. Choi pulled out his tablet and consulted the legal database. According to Galactic Code 847.3, any being that demonstrates sentience has the right to choose their own living situation, regardless of previous ownership claims. The law specifically states that sentient beings cannot be owned as property. "But that would mean," Officer Park began. "That would mean this being has the right to decide for himself where he wants to live," Commander Lee finished. "Mr. Kongmin, I'm afraid your ownership claim is not valid if this creature is indeed sentient." Kongmin's composure finally cracked. His black eyes blazed with fury. "This is outrageous. I have invested enormous sums in these creatures. I will not allow some primitive station to steal my property based on the word of a lowly maintenance worker." "Nobody is stealing anything," Commander Lee said calmly. "We are simply following galactic law. If you wish to dispute this decision, you may file an appeal with the Galactic Rights Commission." "I will do more than that," Kongmin threatened. "I will make sure this station regrets interfering with my business. I have powerful friends in the Trade Commission." Commander Lee's expression did not change. "You are free to contact whoever you wish, Mr. Kongmin, but while you are on this station, you will follow our laws and regulations." Kongmin stared at her for a long moment, then turned his attention back to Bujol. "Very well," he said in a voice like poisoned honey. If this creature is truly sentient, then it can make its own choice. But I wonder if it knows what it is choosing. He activated another device, and suddenly the tunnel was filled with the sound of dragon voices. Taeho heard chirping, calling, and what sounded like crying. The sounds were coming from Kongmin's ship. Buell's eyes went wide with horror. "My cousins," he whispered. "They-1, ... Hi-Jin, ... They are calling for me, ... They are ... Scared." "Yes," Kongmin said with satisfaction. "Your companions are waiting for you. If you do not return, they will be ... disappointed. And when I am disappointed with my property, I sometimes have to discipline them." The threat was clear. If Buell did not come back willingly, Kongmin would hurt the other stellar worms in revenge. Buell began to shake again. Taeho could feel the dragon's internal struggle. Buell wanted to stay free, but he could not bear the thought of his family being hurt because of his choice. "That's enough," Taeho said angrily. "You're threatening innocent beings. That's illegal. Under any law, I am simply explaining the consequences of this creature's choice." Kongmin replied smoothly. "My other animals become agitated when they are separated from their companions. I cannot be held responsible for their behavior." Dr. Choi stepped forward again. "Commander, if there are other sentient beings on that ship being held against their will, we have an obligation to investigate?" "Absolutely not," Kongmin said quickly. "My ship is sovereign territory. You have no authority there." But Commander Lee was already making notes on her tablet. "Actually, Mr. Kongmin, galactic law gives us the right to investigate reports of sentient beings being held in illegal captivity. Dr. Choi, please prepare a formal inspection team." Kongmin realized he had made a mistake. By threatening the other stellar worms, he had given the station authorities legal grounds to board his ship. "This is not over," he snarled. "I will not allow some backward human outpost to destroy my business." "Your business," Commander Lee said quietly, "appears to be slavery. And that is illegal everywhere in civilized space." Kongmin turned and stalked away, his robes billowing behind him. But Taeho could see the rage in his movements. This was not the end of their troubles. Commander Lee turned to Taeho and Bujo. "For now, you are both under station protection. But I want you to know that this situation is far from resolved. Kongmin has powerful connections, and he will likely try to cause problems for us." "I understand," Taeho said, "but I couldn't let Bujol be hurt." Commander Lee looked at the small dragon, who was still pressed close to Taeho's side. "You did the right thing," she said. "Sometimes doing the right thing is not easy or safe, but it's still right." Bial looked up at her with grateful eyes. "Thank you," he said softly. "Thank you, ... for listening, ... for believing that I am ... more than just ... an animal ... You're very welcome," Commander Lee replied. "Now, let's see what we can do about your family." The next few hours were the longest of Taeho's life. He sat in Commander Lee's office with Buell curled up in his lap, waiting for news from the inspection team that had gone to examine Kongmin's ship. Dr. Choi had assembled a team of Xen and legal experts to investigate the claims about other stellar worms being held captive. They had the legal authority to board the ship, but Kongmin had powerful friends who were already making angry calls to the station. "Are you worried?" Taeho asked Buell softly. "Yes," Buell replied, "but also hopeful. For so long, ... I thought there was no escape, no one who would ... listen. But you listened, ... you cared." Before Taeho could respond, Commander Lee's communication device chirped. She answered it immediately. "Commander Lee here." Dr. Choi's voice came through clearly. "Commander, you need to hear this. We found 3 more stellar worms on the ship, just as suspected, but it's worse than we thought." "Worse? How?" Commander Lee asked. "These beings have been drugged to suppress their intelligence. Kongmin has been using chemical compounds to keep them docile and confused. They can barely remember their own names, let alone their history as a free people." Taeho felt Buell tremble in his arms. The small dragon's scales turned dark with grief and anger. "My cousins," Buell whispered, "he has ... stolen their minds ... made them forget who they are ... Can the effects be reversed?" Commander Lee asked. "We think so," Dr. Choi replied, "but it will take time and careful treatment. These beings have been conditioned to believe they are animals for so long that helping them remember their true nature will be a slow process." "Bring them to the medical center immediately," Commander Lee ordered. "And place Kongmin under arrest for enslavement of sentient beings and illegal use of mind-altering substances." "Already done, Commander. He's demanding to speak with his lawyer and threatening to file complaints with every galactic authority he can think of." "Let him complain," Commander Lee said firmly. "We have the evidence we need." When the call ended, Commander Lee turned to Taeho and Bujol. "It looks like your decision to help has saved more lives than just one," she said. Over the following days, the situation continued to develop. News of the stellar worm case spread throughout the galaxy, creating a sensation in legal and scientific circles. The discovery that an entire species had been enslaved and their intelligence suppressed became one of the biggest stories of the year. Tahoe found himself at the center of it all. Reporters wanted to interview him. Legal experts asked for his testimony. And xenobiologists studied his relationship with Buell to understand how humans and stellar worms could communicate. But the most important developments were happening in the medical center, where the 3 rescued stellar worms were slowly recovering their memories and personalities. Day 1 was the first to show improvement. He was slightly larger than Buell, with scales that shifted from green to gold. When the drugs began to wear off, he recognized Buell immediately, and the 2 dragons had an emotional reunion. "Brother," Day 1 said in the musical stellar worm language. That Buell translated for Tahoe. "I thought I would never see you again. I thought I had lost my mind forever." Hyjin, the only female among them, took longer to recover. She was the smallest of the group, with scales like polished silver. When she finally remembered who she was, she wept for hours over all the years she had lost. The 3rd, stellar worm, an elderly male named Sungho, had been enslaved the longest. His recovery was the most difficult, but with patience and care from the medical team, he too began to remember his past. As the stellar worms healed, an amazing thing happened. They began to share their recovered memories with the station's historians and xenobiologists. The story they told was incredible. The stellar worms had once been one of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. They were explorers and scholars who traveled between stars, mapping unknown regions and cataloging new forms of life. Their technology was based on harmony with natural forces rather than domination over them, but their peaceful nature had made them vulnerable to more aggressive species. Slavers had attacked their worlds, capturing thousands of stellar worms and selling them throughout the galaxy as exotic pets and performers. Over generations, most had forgotten their true heritage, conditioned to believe they were nothing more than clever animals. "There may be thousands of my people scattered across space," Buell told Tahoe one evening as they sat in the observation lounge watching the stars. "All of them living as slaves, not knowing who they really are. Then we'll have to find them," Tahoe said simply, "and help them remember." The legal proceedings against Kongman took several weeks, but the outcome was never in doubt. The evidence was overwhelming, and his threats and connections could not overcome the clear facts of the case. He was sentenced to prison and ordered to pay massive fines to compensate his victims. More importantly, the case led to new galactic laws requiring intelligence testing for all beings held as property. Inspection teams were sent to other worlds, where stellar worms had been spotted, leading to the rescue of dozens more enslaved dragons. As for Tahoe and Buell, their friendship continued to grow stronger. The station authorities offered Tahoe a new position as a xenological relations specialist, working to help newly discovered species integrate into galactic society. "I don't know if I'm qualified for such an important job," Tahoe said when Commander Lee made the offer. "You showed more wisdom and compassion in this situation than many trained diplomats would have." She replied, "Sometimes the most important qualification is simply caring about doing the right thing." Buell, whose wing had healed completely, chose to stay with Tahoe rather than leave with the other rescued stellar worms. "My people will rebuild their civilization," he explained. "But you gave me back my freedom when no one else would. I want to help you help others the way you helped me." The story of the human janitor who saved an alien dragon spread throughout the galaxy, inspiring others to look more carefully at the beings around them. Many more enslaved species were discovered and freed, and new laws were passed to protect the rights of all sentient life. Years later, when Tahoe and Buell had become famous throughout known space for their work in freeing enslaved species, people would ask Tahoe what had motivated him to risk everything for one small creature. His answer was always the same: when you see someone who needs help, you help them. It doesn't matter what species they are or how different they look. What matters is that they're scared and hurt and alone, and you have the power to make things better. Everything else is just details. Buell would always add, and sometimes, when you save someone, they save you back in ways you never expected. Their partnership continued for many years, helping to reshape the galaxy's understanding of intelligence, freedom, and the bonds that can form between different species. But it all began with one simple act of kindness in a dark maintenance tunnel, when a humble janitor chose compassion over fear and changed the course of history. The stars that had once seemed cold and distant now felt warm and welcoming, full of possibilities for friendship and understanding between all the diverse forms of life that called the galaxy home.